Hello and welcome, as it is the 13th day of August 2018, and let's start off looking at precious metals on the Money Chart channel, but we'll do so first through that of the gold to silver ratio, currently in at about 79.5, which means it cost about 79.5 ounces of silver for that of 1 ounce of gold. In 2011 it got down to about 32. And it has been as low, not shown on this chart, as even around 11 or 12 to 1 going back to 1980. There's been a lot of resistance amongst this point here in the low 80s at the 82 mark. For it had in the early time when silver was about $4, gold around 400. I guess silver more than 4, and in that area, well, that's where the ratio came into place. And then the rally started happening within the precious metals, where silver would manage to make its way up to about 20. I mean, gold didn't go up at that high of a percentage gain, although it did better than double. But it was enough to make this hit another low from where it was before in the 1990s, or the end of the 90s, 98. So then it goes up again because we've seen silver fall from $21 to $8 and gold fall from 1,000 to that of 700. Thus we had a interesting test of this. But silver managed to retest its 1980 highs by going to 50. Thus it ended up breaking down below the support, but you can call this a failed breakdown, as it broke down a key level of support very noticeably, didn't spend much time there, and it quickly came back to its previous congestion area, which would have been at this point, which it did so in here. And since the silver fall of $50 has occurred, it has not been breaking the pattern of lower highs. It's been making lower highs along the lower highs along the way. Thus, this has been making higher highs along the way, testing in towards here. Only a small correction occurred thereafter. But what's very noticeable in technical analysis is if you have a situation where you hit a key point, you do all of this down stuff, big up move to retest back there again, another big move, working its way back up to a hit 3x time at least. To start the 2000s, it was a third time hit. And only have this type of higher low, which meant it held and stayed above this level of resistance around this little congestion area, and it supported, of course, twice resistance in here as well. And now it's back to that area. I see something like this, it's not a surprise if the market does something where it would either let me just move it we would either just have a decent leg higher, plain and simple, decent leg, 102, 106, 112, something noticeably of a significant leg from, of course, this point. Maybe it may even make a little bit of more congestion in this area before doing so, but the more likely situation, if this is to occur, is that silver would have a significant down move and gold not quite that significant. Meanwhile, with the dollar index, it has broken this level of resistance at around the 95 and change mark. And when we look at this, say on a longer term time frame, weekly chart, after having a move from a high that it hadn't seen in quite some time, it managed to break down below this low, finding an area in this empty gap spot from the rally that occurred in 2014. And it has since now retraced a little bit. It's got a decent ways to go to get back up to the 103 handle, but it has, when it came back up to this October Halloween resistance time, it resisted it for a few weeks and is now concluded that resistance after several periods of riding the 18 average of highs. Now, why we got two identical looking candles like this, I'm not going to go too much more into that, but with that being stated, that's showing strength in it. And of course, this is the US fiat dollar against other fiat currencies. Let's look at silver next. And in viewing such on the daily term, it's been a lot of choppy action. Throughout most of 2018, it was trading within this range, and it had a couple situations where it tried to have the breakout, one being here, came back to its level, then it did it again, but this time unable to support within what that area was. Instead, it resisted it, leg lower, resist it, leg lower to a lower low. It's been resisting it for a while, and we can see in just this most recent session today, it has broken through that. It's already made a lower low. Whether it's going to be any lower, of course, time can only tell within the situation. And when I've talked on my channel about the trading strategy, that when it goes down you buy, when it goes up you sell, when the markets are playing like this in the choppy format, anytime you've been buying on these down moves and selling for whatever basis points higher has been effective. So to think of what's the situation here, buy or sell, well, one would make a case you sell now because you see it breaking lower. You think it's going to at least test maybe 14.5. And of course, it could even go much deeper than that and maybe test the 2016 lows of below 14. So you might be thinking, okay, let's get out now for some, try to buy back. And of course, when you're talking about the physical game, you don't do that obviously for these moves. And I mean, if you're very good at being able to play the spread game in the tangible market, which means you can buy a silver eagle for a lower spread that you can sell for, then that's just part of being a business as a silver salesman or a precious metals dealer, being able to win in the bid-ask price or the real value of the silver that's traded amongst the physical market. Because when I see these markets move, I realize it's not even the real thing that's being traded. In the crypto market, if I'm buying or selling Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum, I take possession of such. When I buy, I can move it on the blockchain as I wish. If I go on here and buy whatever amount of silver, or whether it's on the SLV through these type of COMEX funds and all the derivative nonsense, well, that doesn't create what is that of the fair price. So it's a no-brainer that this has been a manipulated market. It still is. And if this gets driven down any lower, it's going to create very good buying opportunities, at least as I would be thinking. So then, monthly chart. And of course, this shows that rally again, 2008 up to it's basically close to $50. And continuous decline amongst the 18 average amongst this, as it had its situation of neutrality, correcting this move. Obviously showing failure as it broke below the 26. It hasn't even touched that number since it has fallen below. Had this leg lower, thus correcting within the 18, below that 26, got up to 24. It still hasn't been above that point. It had several hits of the originally established level of support. And then it went on to basically, in two moves, make a leg lower, or two legs lower, depending on how you want to look at it, because there was this low. You resist the declining 18, barely a lower low, and this was the opportunity in reverting the trend. Stage 1, band flatten out. Stage 2, establish that level of resistance. Stage 3, come back to the band, and it's been in this band for quite some time. And it is now just leaving such, showing that, okay, so now when we look at point A and point B for moves, you got a key high here, a key low here. You'd be looking at the key high here, and you would not be looking at any of these highs. You'd be looking at this is a low, and this is a high because it got above the 18. That was the first time since the $50 high that it got above that point. So if it's unable to get above and break down below, then oftentimes you could be saying, I think this thing can make new legs lower, which means lower than what it was before. So we had this low, you had this low, you have this low. That's basically a situation where just by technical analysis, a move that can come back to $10 is in no mirror, definitely not out of the question. For myself as a buyer, I find these silver prices still relatively high because Bitcoin is barely over $6,000. And as a lot of this stuff is going on in here, as it was just trading within this range, when Bitcoin ratios got to the point where, well, Bitcoin's over 10,000, anything over 8, 9, 10,000 has been great situations for me to turn Bitcoin into that of precious metals. But if there's any of these down moves, then it's not going to take that great of a crypto portfolio gain for me to say, yeah, I'm gonna buy a bit more. But I realize at some point there's going to be a situation where the fiat Ponzi scheme is going to be in massive pressure, and precious metals like physical silver is going to be something that I think will do very well. Finishing off this with gold on the monthly chart, and using the same sort of talking as far as reversal of trend, band flattening out, establishing resistance, coming back to the band. It never did take out that level of resistance. So as this was going on, it was in one heck of that of an ascending triangle, and it's obviously broken that pattern to that of the downside. As we can see that just within the 18 here on the monthly chart, couple periods going down below it, so therefore we're looking back at some key levels of possible support. Next up is about 1135, and then this low in at 1063 as potential levels, and breaking down below that, I can see there's a lot of this empty space. You'd be looking at about a break below 1,000. I would think about 925. If this level gets taken out at the 1060, probably back to the 2008 congestion area, a little bit within it, so even 900 even-ish area. 9 to 925 would be my projected area if it breaks through, and that's on the situation on if it does so. But on the daily term time frame, there's been a consistent down move lower. It has also had a lot of these choppy up and down movements, so any situations, if you're buying on downtrends, selling on up moves, that just means you're getting mostly buy opportunities here, because you know there's going to be a situation like we have seen before. Look where this happens. Market's in a down move and it has a big up move. Big up move here. So what do these markets do? They have good down moves, they have good up moves. This has been a very spectacular down move as far as how you look at one turn versus the other. Of course, how the markets are moved, just like silver, definitely an artificially traded market. And fundamentally, the one thing that does concern me about gold is you mine it, you melt it, you put it in bars and coins, and then you store it, and you just keep doing that. And thus the actual overall supply, which in effect with the gold to silver ratio makes it very difficult for me to buy that much gold. I've only bought gold once in the last couple of years, and I've only bought gold 3 times in my life. So I'm not a big gold fan. I like the physical silver because I think long term that has a lot of great upside. And how long this game in this world goes on where we have these types of depressed prices and a situation where majorly large up moves like 1970 style, like crypto style, especially if it starts trading in a blockchain, how huge the movements can end up being in the future, and how glad people are going to be having that they hold the physical gold, the physical silver in situations of fiat currency fluctuations that, well, let's just say they're not pretty, because the fiat currency is designed to debt the human race, thus make sure debt levels steadily rise. Look at student loan debts, mortgage debts, credit card debts, all of the likes, government debts, company debts, they just emasculate. And then the amount of people having difficult times because of the economic monetary model of fiat currency designed to do such, while it's also defending against technological unemployment. It's just a situation that's like if you look at the Looney Tunes and you got that Acme thing, you know, thing just gonna, that little TNT thing just gonna blow and bomb, if you will. That's really what I see within the monetary system, which what makes cryptocurrencies and precious metals a very interesting holding during these times. And people think cash is king. It will be until it's not. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.